Welcome back to Live Now from Fox, where we have been talking extensively about the cold weather affecting parts of the northeast of the United States, one of those being New York City. And right now, Fox 5's Lisa Evers is joining us live. And Lisa, I understand that the dangerous weather conditions there have actually turned deadly.
Well, they actually have, Corral. Since January 19th, New York City has been under what they call a code blue alert, which gives the authorities the power to remove people from the streets and take them inside if it's life-threatening cold, which it is right now. And just over the weekend, the mayor updated the death toll. There have been 14 people who have been found deceased outside in the cold weather. 8 of them, they've conducted autopsies, completed autopsies. They died from hypothermia. That's just from straight up exposure to the cold. So what the city has done is they have accelerated calls that come into the 311, which is the general information number. They get routed right away to 911. And what they do is the 911 caller will say, ask about the condition of the individual. Do they need medical help? Is there a fight going on or something like that where they need the police, or where there's some type of, some type of disturbance where they need the police officers to be there as well to help the paramedics control the situation. And then they take them into these shelters. And this has just been, a lot of the people that are on the streets, according to, I interviewed a psychiatrist last week who deals exclusively with the homeless population in New York City. He said more of the people, and it's probably true in other places as well, more of the people who are on the streets now have had lifelong trauma. They have had, like, it's basically layers on layers of trauma. They don't really want to be around a lot of other people because other people have always, they feel have done harm to them. So the city came up with this idea of safe haven shelters. So they have the big mass intake shelters where there's dozens of beds, cots, like one right next to each other. You have no privacy. Then they came up with these smaller shelters, which started appearing about a year or two ago, well, not even 2 years ago, last year. And they've really opened up more of them to deal with this cold weather crisis. So we were the first camera. We got an exclusive look inside one of these safe haven shelters, which honestly, when we walked in, I was like, whoa, this is kind of like a college dorm in here, but take a look.
Right now, outreach workers are at it 24/7, trying to bring the street homeless in from the cold. But some resist going because they fear the big city shelters are too dangerous with the open-style dorms and crowded conditions. When Keith Elam was on the streets, he tells me he preferred to sleep on the #1 train.
There's just so many things going on in the shelter. Like the staff at a shelter really can't cover every issue that goes on.
Elam says an outreach worker changed his life last winter when she told him about the safe haven shelters, which are smaller and full of supportive services. He tells me the outreach worker spent hours trying to get him placed, which she did, at a CUCS facility. He even got his own room.
Well, I was on a platform one day, a train platform, and these people came up to me. They were outreach workers, and they asked me, did I need any help? Like, did I look for, did I need shelter? And I said, no. They said, well, we have a safe haven shelter. And I said, well, I've been to a city shelter before, and I'm better here than I'm safer here than I'm in a city shelter.
Under the ongoing code blue alert, the Department of Social Services, which oversees the Department of Homeless Services, has mobilized an array of resources, from warming buses to intensified street outreach, partnering with nonprofit service providers like the Center for Urban Community Services, CUCS for short, to blanket the city.
From Monday the 19th until today, we've had more than 600 placements into a variety of different settings, almost all of which have been shelter and safe havens.
This safe haven shelter also offers a variety of on-site services for its residents.
We have a cafeteria that we can show you, but we also have our medication room. So services that we provide here is assistance with medication. So clients see our on-site providers, and we help coordinate to bring the medications on site.
For Keith Elam, the safe haven has given him a chance to rebuild his life after 3 decades of homelessness, substance abuse, and criminal justice involvement. He volunteers now at a church group and does other volunteer work. He tells me he'll be leaving the safe haven soon and moving into his own apartment in a couple of weeks.
It's transformation, right? See, that's what has to be done for me.
Now Keith, of course, is a success story. but his story is very typical of a lot of people who are on the streets right now in New York City in terms of the street homeless. He's 61, 62 years old. He'd been on the streets for on and off between the streets, drug addiction, and jail for over 30 years. And so he would go into a shelter, he would get clean, he'd go back, and then there would be this criminal justice involvement because where there's a drug addiction, if they're not independently wealthy, they're going to be stealing stuff a lot of times in order to pay for the drugs or buy the drugs. And this was his first chance. It was last year. This outreach worker said to him, "Listen, let me try to find you a bed." It was really cold. We had a cold spell last winter, nothing like what we're going through right now. And then Carell, he had a chance to actually transform his life. But you saw the room there. I mean, it's new. It's like it's like a tiny college dorm room, but it's his own. And he said just the idea of having a place he could sleep with a door you can lock, that is safe, was just such a, it just helped him so much to get stabilized. So that's what the city's really trying to do. They're really focusing on what they're calling the chronic street homeless, like he was. And he's going to be moving out to his own apartment in a couple of weeks. He plans to start working a job. He got involved with a church group, and that really, really helped him because he said they accepted him. It really strengthened his faith. He got into Bible studies. He's a mentor for some of the youth that are there working with them. But it was a lot of steps, and then also one of the requirements was that he be clean, which he says he is. So the city's really trying everything that they can. But I mean, when you think of the square mileage, the city is huge just in terms of territory and places people can be. And they're really trying to grapple with this dilemma of how do we get people in. They said they have 4,000 other beds, like the one that you just saw in our news report, to offer to people. They're really trying to get them in. And of course, the vast majority, about 97% of the New York City homeless are already in shelters. And there was a horrendous statistic. The commissioner who was that you just heard from, she gave us this number. She said like over 80,000 people are in New York City shelters, and the vast majority of them are families with small children. Now, when we say shelter for a family, it's usually a hotel, like a hotel room. It can be a small kind of efficiency apartment. They usually don't have full kitchens. Sometimes they have their own bathroom like you would in a motel room. But it's just it's a mammoth problem. But they're really, it's really a life-saving issue at this point with this cold. I mean, I loaded a couple things, made a couple trips back and forth into my car, and I just said, "Oh, I don't need my gloves," and you feel it on your skin right away. That's how cold it is, Carell.
And Lisa, it's just something that a lot of us take for granted. Having a place, a warm place where we can go in and sleep when it's really cold outside. I just have one question to ask. You have been reporting down there in New York for several years now. When you see what's happening now, some of the changes that have been made just to provide that support for people who are unhoused, especially during these weather, these times where there's really severe weather and the cold, what kind of changes have you seen that have been implemented that have really helped that population? But also, what are some of the challenges still being faced?
Well, I think in terms of what helped the population, one of the things that impressed me from doing the story was that they have there's a plan. Like you go into a shelter, like Keith did, the gentleman that we talked to, and they said that the average stay is about 9 months. They have a very high success rate because the people are around people who are supporting them. The lady we interviewed, she's a licensed clinical social worker. She's the deputy director of the program. They have reliable, steady medication that is monitored right there, which a lot of them need various types of medication. That's there. That's being done on a consistent basis. They have three free meals a day in the cafeteria. There's facilities where they can get snacks 24/7. They don't have to, there's no curfew but they have to be back within 3 days, otherwise they lose their bed. But what that's allowed them to do is get back, is to not feel like they're in jail when they're in a shelter. And the ones that do start to show initiative, there's a tremendous amount of support there. They even have, Carl, this was the other thing that was incredible. They even had a life services counselor. And I said, "What's a life services counselor?" And the director said to me, she goes, "Lisa, that's for people, they don't have an ID, they don't have an address, to do anything, anything nowadays, you have to have an ID. That's step one, a job, housing, whatever. And she said after about 9 months, most of the people leave, and the vast majority of them end up in one of the city subsidized housing programs or one of the what they call supportive services, where it's almost like a group home, but it's individual apartments for them, but there's counselors there because these people are coming from very erratic, unstable situations, a lot of them, and that's got to do something to your mind. I mean, just being out in the cold. By the end of the day, one day we were down at City Hall last week, and after like five live shots and in and out of City Hall and in and out of the trucks and in and out of all this stuff, it's like you just go like that cold, and you're like, it's like, I don't want to be, I got to get out of this cold. It affects your emotions, it affects your temperament and everything like that. So that's the good thing. That's the good thing is that they have a plan. This is not the migrant hotel boom when we got inundated with undocumented migrants during that period. Towards the end of the Biden administration, where they were putting them in hotel rooms with maid service, giving them a full array of benefits with no responsibility. This is very different from that. This is a program. They have to comply with certain requirements, and they can advance. The big challenge has been that when you're used to living on the streets, that's a very different mentality than actually being in a place where people know you, where there's other people around, where there's accountability. So the problem for the city has been to try to locate the people who may fall out on the street. The other thing too, I can tell you about being in this cold, having been outside so much last week, is when you sit down, it's like, I can keep going all day. I can run, and we can go here and go there and do these live shots and get these reports and file this and file that. But then it's by the time I get home, I mean, literally, if I sat down on the couch in the living room for longer than 5 minutes before I took off my boots and my coat, I would be sound asleep, because you just don't even, it's so draining, it's so dehydrating in that extreme cold. So for the people on the streets, they can get on the subway. That's been the real problem, is one of the few warm places they can go, where there's no barrier to entry, because you can, it's not that hard to sneak in. They just go on the subway, and then they'll sleep on a subway car. The man you saw in the news report we just had, he had a train that was basically like his address, the #1 train. And he's like, I would just go. He said, you see the people all curled up in a ball like that. He said, that's where I would go. I would feel relatively safe. And that's what I would do to stay warm, and that's where I would go to sleep. And you see, always when you see the homeless too, you see a lot of bags. Excuse me, they're basically carrying their life with them on the street like that. That's all they have. And Carl, just one quick story. We were down at criminal court in this court complex in Lower Manhattan about a month ago. And in December, actually, when we had a very, not as cold, quite as cold as this, but it was in the 20s. It was really cold. There was a homeless woman. She had her bags, she had her cart, and it was a bitterly cold day. And when I was walking in towards the court, she had her broom out. She's sweeping the sidewalk in this little section that she had kind of taken over with her belongings and her bags and the other stuff that she had with her, this was her home. So the problem for the city to get to all these people before it's too late is how fast you can get, how fast you can get really seriously ill and die in this cold if you're exposed for too long, and especially if you have other ongoing conditions, with high blood pressure, low blood pressure, heart conditions, undiagnosed heart conditions, and then the mobility, because they can be on one train and they'll just be on the train, but it could be moving through dozens and dozens of stations and dozens of neighborhoods. So that's the challenge that they're facing now. But they fast-tracked, when you call the information number in New York, which is 311, to access city services, those calls are immediately getting routed to a 911 operator who will ask you, is it a medical emergency? You say homeless, and they'll go, hold on a second, I need to get 911 right away. And they get you right on, and you describe whether you saw the person. I did it myself actually this morning on the way into work, because I said, we're telling people to call this number. I passed somebody in the car, a homeless person who was on the street under a lot of blankets and stuff. And as soon as I got into the station, I gave them a call, and the system was pretty efficient. Like they were very like, hold on, give us the exact address, give us the exact description. So they're really making an effort, but it's just, and then you add on to it, you're dealing with people with substance abuse issues, you're dealing with a lot of mental health issues, and mental, undiagnosed and untreated professionally for a very, very long time. So it's just that's the challenge. I mean, they're trying their best. I don't, the number is shocking. 14 people, that's like a number we would have had 2 years ago in a gang shootout or something. But like the number of people shot, but it's like for a number of people to freeze to death since January 19th, in like 2 weeks time, that's that's pretty disturbing for a lot of people. But I don't see what else. What else they could be doing. They even opened up, Corel, to answer your question too. They opened up, they put buses in front of the city hospitals, warming buses. So they figure like, look, if people don't want to get like caught up in the system, they don't have to fill out any paperwork, they don't have to show an ID, they can just get on the bus, they can just sit on the bus, be safe, be warm, and then somebody will bring them a hot cocoa or a hot coffee or water or some food or a sandwich, and then they can start to engage that way and try to get them in, because it's not something like they can go, hey, you're homeless, come with us, we got a bed for you. It doesn't work like that. They have to have the counselors, they have to make them trust them. It's quite a very specialized task, but these outreach workers that are out right now are kind of our local heroes right now. They're out there 24/7, Corel.
A lot of logistics that goes into really helping this. It's a very challenging problem, especially when you're talking about people who are unhoused during these cold temperatures, and a lot still needs to be done. But I do appreciate, Lisa, that you have joined us here to kind of break this down. Again, very complex, so there's a lot of, things to get into, the nitty-gritty, but at least there are steps being taken to make sure that people, at least for the most part, can stay safe during the cold. Lisa Evers with our team at Fox 5 in New York. We always appreciate your time.
All right, thanks, Corel. Have a great day.
Of course, you as well. We're going to step away for a quick commercial break. The cold temperature is something that we are still monitoring here at Live Now from Fox. We'll be checking in with our partners across the country and at Fox Weather to bring you those headlines. We'll be right back.